He had these long nails. I noticed them when his fingers were drumming on his thigh. They were crooked and pointy and brown and so long. Dr. Hahn shrugs.
What's wrong with that? Isn't he allowed to have long nails?
Yes, of course, but there were other things as well, and curious as I was, I asked him about it. I said, "But Santa, what long nails you have." And then he said,
"That's to better be able to scratch myself on the back when it itches."
Then I said, "But Santa, what red eyes you have." And he answered,
"That's because I work so hard around Christmas and don't get enough sleep."
So then I said, "But Santa, what long teeth you have, and pointy as well, and what is that in your white beard? It looks like blood."
"Blood?"
Dr. Hahn says and looks up from his pad. Yes, blood. There was blood in his beard. Dr. Hahn shrugs.
So maybe he bit himself or something. What happened next?
He told me to go back to my parents. My mom said I was shaking when I got back to her. She didn't believe me, of course, and told me I was being silly.
It does sound like you exaggerated a little, or let your imagination get the better of you,
he says,
as children tend to do.
That's what my mom said, but it gets worse. A lot worse. I'm not done with my story.
How so?
That Christmas night, I snuck downstairs when I heard a noise, and I saw him in my living room.
Was he kissing your mom?
Dr. Hahn says with a chuckle. Sara ignores his remark. I saw those long, dirty nails sticking out from his sleeves. I was terrified of him and ran back to my room and shut the door. Panting, I leaned my ear against the door and listened. My parents slept in their room downstairs, so I couldn't get to them. I heard steps on the stairs, and at one point, I think he was right outside my door, because I could hear his heavy breathing behind it. It was almost like a wheezing.
Maybe he was out of breath from the stairs,
Dr. Hahn says, still sounding amused.
He is quite heavy.
Later, the breathing disappeared and it all went quiet. When I thought it was safe, I opened the door and snuck into the hallway, my feet quiet across the thick carpet. I walked to my brother's room where the door was left ajar. I pushed it open and looked inside, and that's when I saw it. There he was. Santa was bent over my brother's bed. "Santa?" I said. And that's when he turned his head and looked straight at me, smiling from ear to ear, showing me his pointy teeth. They were covered in blood, my brother's blood. Chapter 3.
It says here in your file that your brother was found dead in his bed on Christmas morning, 1992. It says nothing here about blood. There was no obvious cause. They concluded it had to be sudden infant death syndrome.
But he was 5, Doctor. He was no infant. Santa killed him, Sara says and lifts her head up from the couch.
So you claimed even back then when you were questioned about it by the police.
Here we go again, she says and rolls her eyes. All of my life I have had to deal with this. Everyone believed I had done it. The kids and teachers at school, the doctors, the police. Even my parents believed I had somehow killed my brother. Just because I was in the room. Just because my parents found me there bent over his dead body.
Well, you were awfully jealous of him, weren't you?
Dr. Hahn says.
You said so just before when you mentioned he had gotten a Game Boy and you didn't.
Who wouldn't be jealous? He was always their favorite. 3 years younger than me and he gets a Game Boy when it was my biggest wish? Of course I was jealous.
So it is safe to say you resented him for being favored,
Dr. Hahn says, taking off his glasses. I know what you're getting at, Sara says. Not falling for it. Santa killed my brother. End of story.
Except it's not, is it? The end of the story.
Sara sighs and leans her head back on the couch. No, it's not.
Tell me the rest.
Okay, well, after the death of my brother, I developed a fear of Santa and dreaded every year when Christmas came around and he was everywhere. When I was 16, I met this